This is a longtime friend of mine's truck. It's been sitting here for way too long because I just haven't had an opportunity to spend the time on it that I need to. So I spent yesterday getting it set up on the dyno, building a map for it. Really, we haven't even gotten started yet, and we already got a couple issues that we're going to have to deal with, but more on that in a minute. Every single person that has come through the doors since this truck's been here has asked if this is painted or wrapped, and it is wrapped. And the coolest part about this wrap is that they did it themselves, and it's their first time doing it. And if I'm being completely honest, it actually looks better than a lot of the professional wraps that I've seen come through the door. Finally got some sample t-shirts and hoodies made. I don't have a lot of time to fool with it, so I just went with kind of the most expensive place, hoping that the quality would just be good right from the get-go. But I'd say it's maybe 90% there, and I think I'm going to try and get some samples from a couple other places before I commit to these. So luckily I was able to do some samples before spending $5,000–$10,000 on some shirts I wasn't happy with.
Can you like shut up?
So the first problem we're up against is this came in with like a 65% learn correction. I'm kind of surprised it even made it here, and ultimately ended up wanting VE numbers at idle that are up over 100. So I don't know if we have an injector data problem or we have an actual fuel flow problem. So I've manipulated the injector data to get the numbers a little more reasonable. They're still a little bit high, but ultimately what I'm trying to avoid is having it, you know, max the injectors out at 10 pounds of boost or something in the fuel table. So probably end up spot checking this in a few different places before I really spend a bunch of time trying to dial in all the fueling exactly, as I've learned over the years that sometimes that you try and get the numbers right in one spot and then they're just out in left field in the other. So got to deal with that. And the next problem that we're dealing with is that our flex fuel sensor is totally wigging out to the point where it's going to be unusable. And I have not cold started this yet, so I'm going to try and do that right now. So that was pretty good, but if you see here, watch the flex fuel sensor, it's just doing whatever it wants. So if we have any type of fuel or timing modifiers, they're just going crazy equally as much as the sensor is. And then the third problem, which we can deal with later, as you can see here, our coolant pressure sensor is just reading max at 100 psi. 9 times out of 10, that means that the 5-volt and the signal wires are backwards. But we don't need that to tune, so we can kind of ignore that for right now. And I have not tested the dome pressure sensor, so hopefully that one works. The good news is the cold start was really good, so it should be good to go there. Then we'll start driving it around a little bit. So you got closed loop turned off, and our fueling's pretty close. Idle seems to be rock solid. The idle was surging a lot before I noticed that the flex fuel sensor was wigging out because it was throwing extra 30% of fuel at it for a couple seconds and then taking it back out. So that's kind of a bummer. We're not going to be able to do any ethanol tuning today. All right, time for the best part of the day. Lines for the boost control solenoid are leaking. I actually tried turning on the boost control and nothing worked, so just kind of as a Hail Mary, I flipped the increase and decrease solenoids in the pin map, just hoping and praying that maybe I had them backwards, and that actually was the problem. So it looks like that works. The big issue is, and the ironic part about it, is he joked around about it when he brought the car. Is I don't know what brand this is. I've never heard of it, but we got the same thing for the fuel pressure regulator. And so far the boost is only 3 psi, but the fuel pressure is not increasing. So I'm gonna turn it up a little bit more just to see if, you know, maybe a little bit more pressure will actually bring it up a little bit. I forgot this thing actually came here on factory ECU with, you know, no turbo or anything on it. And so it's, even at 3 PSI, it's up quite a bit, and it's got no timing in it, so it'd pick up even more. But until we can get the fuel pressure working, we might kind of be done here before we even really get started.
Me off, son.
Well, nothing at all about that one is planned, so let's figure out what the hell just happened. So it's probably blatantly obvious, but we overshot the boost target quite a bit. I haven't really dug into why that was yet, but the good news is my attempt to just raise the boost to bring fuel pressure up actually worked. The fuel pressure didn't go up 1 to 1, but it is in the ballpark, so at least we got something that we can work with. Duty cycle's still good. Ironically, at 21 pounds of boost, our closed loop correction is at 0% at 6,000 RPM, or 5,700, whatever that is. Air fuel's good, target's good. All right, so if I can figure out why the hell the boost just decided to go apeshit, I think we got something we can work with. I was a little bit worried that this was just going to be a total wash, and we weren't going to be able to accomplish anything, but now I'm a little bit more excited about it. All right, let me figure out this boost control stuff. So basically what's happened is the entire boost control system has quit working, and it's pegging the decrease solenoid at 100%. So I think what happened is when I was setting up the boost PIDs, I obviously changed all of the target values. And what I'm guessing is that the decrease solenoid is not actually decreasing. So I think it just held the dome pressure, whatever the highest dome pressure was that I targeted. So I'm gonna see if I can't dump the pressure that's in it and see if we can't confirm that that's what's happening. So I just manually dumped the dump valve, or the decrease solenoid, whatever the hell you want to call it. And now our target is 0, both of our solenoids are reading 0, so everything is as I would expect. So let's throw like 5 pounds of dome pressure at it. Alright, sounds like that one hose is leaking again, so I'll have to take a look at that, but now our dome pressure is holding correctly, so let's bring it back down to confirm our suspicion here. It worked that time. What the hell? Now everything's working as normal. So I don't know if maybe I moved something and a wire's now connected that wasn't before, or what. So we'll just move forward, and obviously we'll keep an eye on it. I'll bring the boost cut further down. Ironically, we're like 1 PSI away from hitting it last pull. That's different. I've never run into that before. You can hear it leaking like crazy. See if we can fix that. Don't know how well you can see that, but you want to try to avoid using dikes to cut this line. So when you cut it crooked like that, they always tend to leak. No, I can't say that I'm going to cut it straight and it's going to stop leaking, but I've seen this be a problem 56,000 times. There's too much tension on this hose, so I can't fit my fingernail into this side of it, but there's a big gap on this side. If we straighten it out, it stops. So I'll probably just, and you can see this line's kind of like fighting itself too, so I'll probably just replace these 2 pieces of hose, and I think we'll be in good shape. It's nice that the Fuel Tech solenoids have the lights on them. It makes it easy to see what's happening. Here's a little piece of hose. You can see this one's cut at a real harsh, even harsher than the other one as far as the angle goes. Put a longer piece there. Hopefully that'll take care of it. So the good news is all of the leaks are fixed now. You can see it's dead silent. Now the problem is it's doing that thing again where the vent solenoid is fully open or whatever, but it's not venting the CO2. So there you can vent it manually. So, 'cause Can't push it all the way in with one hand. So with no other changes, now it's working correctly. It's like the decrease solenoid is sticking or something. It's definitely not a programming thing. Now it's not venting again. This is extremely frustrating. Yeah, so it's just going up to whatever the highest pressure is, and then it won't come back down from there. And nothing here makes any difference whatsoever, so we're going to just bypass the boost control and do this the old school way. And once he gets that straightened out, then we can reprogram it. Alright, so now we're going from the CO2 bottle directly to the gates. This must be what it feels like tuning the carburetor. So get a screwdriver. Bottle's on. And then we'll just use the dome pressure, since this gauge isn't fine enough. And 7 psi is what I was targeting, so now we're good to go.
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
Seems like a good time for a quick backstory on this car. So this is a longtime friend, longtime Honda customer of mine. He actually picked up this truck, turbocharged it before I started messing with tuning any of these with factory ECU. He brought it to Matt over at Sloppy Mechanics. They tuned on it, and then just like everybody else, he decided he wanted to make more power. At that point I started fooling around with these things, so I brought it here, and it just didn't. You could keep turning the boost up, and it just didn't make any more power. So ultimately he ended up parting it out.
How much y'all give me if I slam dunk this thing into the trash can?
Nothing.
And put a different engine in it, and we ran it with no turbo for a while just so we could drive around and use it as an actual truck. And then decided to re-turbocharge it and put Holley in it and change basically everything. So at this point the only thing that is the same is the trans, and I'm pretty sure the converter, but everything else is new. So it made 700 already on accident. So it seems that the issue with power not going up as you turn the boost up seems to be a thing of the past. So that's actually a huge relief, because if it still did it now, then you'd almost have to question if maybe something's going on with the trans. But I think we're at the point that we can kind of finally start doing some tuning on this now, assuming my hood wrap boost control works, which it should. Felt good, sounded good, smoked a lot. Let's take a look at the log and see what we're up against now. So if we look over here at our closed loop comp, it's pretty close. I need to pull a little bit out right before I roll into the throttle. It goes a little rich on tip end, so I'll make an adjustment there. A little bit of this is probably some leftover from the tip end, but we'll still make some adjustments. And once we actually kind of get into the boost, we're pretty close. I think I have the VE table just pretty much laying flat at high RPM, and so we got to start rolling it over just a little bit. Made what, 9-10 pounds? Exactly what I was hoping for. Fuel pressure is a little questionable. All of our ethanol stuff's turned off because the ethanol sensor is reading crazy. So the next round we're going to try a little bit of timing, and I'm just going to make these fuel table changes. Theoretically, I should pick up a few horsepower. So the purple and the white are the last two runs. I picked up about 20 horsepower everywhere with a little more timing. Considering we're stuck just using 93 octane, that's probably going to be about all we're going to do. So I cleaned it up right before the run started. So we still got a little bit more correction that I like, but adjusting the Excel enrichment, we got it out of the toilet as far as the air fuel goes. And then once we actually start making boosts, we're 1 or 2%. I'm happy with that. Huh. It's frustrating we can't just put ethanol in it, because this thing is running so much better than it did with the old turbo setup. I'm trying to figure out what we're going to do. Also looks like our TPS isn't 100% happy. I'll try a TPS auto set for that, otherwise the bracket or something might be moving, or maybe the cable stretching. All in all, it seems pretty happy though.
Who this is? Who this is?
Hey, what's up?
I was gonna say, with your stuff, there's a bunch of like little problems. I'm kind of able to work around all of them so far. So it accidentally made 700 horsepower, so that's cool. The only the only downside to that was that it was on 93 octane when it did that. So your coolant pressure sensor just reads like max pressure. So usually when that happens, like the 5 volt and the signal wires are crossed. The fuel pressure is questionable, and I don't know if it's the regulator itself or if it's the sensor.
That was probably one of my concerns. I think, like, yeah, when we were there,
yeah, we were joking around about it. In the first run that I made, the fuel pressure didn't go up any. So I'm like, well, we're literally done after the first run. But just to sort of like test it and verify, I turned the boost up a little bit, and the fuel pressure does go up. It's just not going up 1 to 1. And so far it's not a problem. I mean, we're at about where I want to stop on pump gas. We're at like 570 at 10 pounds of boost, and fuel pressure went up like 5 pounds. So it went up like half as much as it's supposed to, but we're still only at like 50% duty cycle. So it's okay. It's not ideal, but it's kind of like one of those, either you work with it or I tell you to come pick it up. So I figured you want me to at least try to accomplish something.
yeah, I'll definitely, that's going to be the first thing that I replace. I'll just get, air motive or something and
Yeah.
throw it on there.
I've had the best luck with welding regulators over the years, so that's what I would encourage you to go with. They're not really any more expensive or anything. And the reason it accidentally, so you had your inputs, or your outputs rather, wired backwards for the boost control solenoids. So nothing worked, so I just, I've seen it a million times, so I just flipped them and everything started working. The problem is that it seems like your decrease solenoid is like sticking or something, because everything was working and it's functioning correctly, but as I was setting up like the PID stuff, I set it to like 20 and then brought it back down, which is what I do on all of them. But the problem is it never released the pressure, so it accidentally targeted 20. It made 700 horsepower like on a little half run. I didn't rev it all the way out because you tell it was just kind of going apeshit in comparison. So what I did is I just bypassed the boost solenoids altogether and then just used the CO2 and the dome pressure sensor to, like, in a screwdriver, like a carburetor, to just set the dome pressure to 10 pounds or 7 pounds or whatever the hell number it was. And that worked good. And then the next problem is that your flex fuel sensor isn't working correctly. It reads 10, which is about what they do on pump gas, but then it will just like randomly go to 100 and then, you know, kind of go somewhere in between. So we kind of can't tune using it because it's just doing whatever the hell it wants to do. So the main reason for my phone call was, do you want to take care of all this stuff and then try again later with ethanol and use the flex fuel sensor? Or do you want to just drain the 93, put ethanol in it, and I can build like a hood rat flex fuel table for now that we'll just have to go back and update and fix later?
It's up to you. Whatever you suggest. I mean, if you're gonna do the ethanol and flex fuel, I should probably get at least like the regulator and stuff working.
That's my exact suggestion. Doing the hood rat way, like, doesn't really bother me. I've done it so many times because nobody's flex fuel sensor ever works right. So that's not an issue. But the problem becomes the more time we spend now, and then when you change the regulator, then we're gonna have to kind of start all over again, so to speak.
Yeah. And then the sensor, the flex fuel sensor, is that what you normally use? Is that Continental one? It's just like a factory.
Yeah, so it's never the sensor that's the problem, it's always the wiring. Got 56 text messages during that phone call. Alright, so I'm going to touch up some drivability stuff. We are going to swap out that regulator and get the flex fuel reading and working correctly and both solenoids and all that. So rather than spending 1,000 hours on it now just to have to redo it, we'll just go for a round 2 and touch up that stuff there. But either way, 500 and what did it make, 570 or something? That's more than enough power for this thing to have some fun with, especially on 93. Just do a little part throttle stuff. Up just a little bit, and I think we're good to go on that. Tip-in seems good. Can't even tell when it comes back to idle. It's returning to idle. Nice. Heavy on the brakes. Bump the idle set screw up just a little bit. IAC position is nice and where I want it to be in park, but it's a little high in drive, so change that a touch. Cool temp's a little higher than it has been, so let's make sure that it starts okay. Need an engineering degree to make the key work. A little more flare than I'd like. See if we can't fix that real quick. That's better. I think that's pretty much where we need to be. Made a bunch of changes, so it'll stay with me overnight. I'll double check, make sure their cold start's still good to go, and I think that'll about do it. So if you like watching these dyno tuning videos, here's a couple more that you can choose from to check out, and I'll see you next time.